The falsified signatures were impossible to ignore. Stacked on top of each other, they glared from a huge screen in the subdued, stunned courtroom. Robyn Brown's cursive, dramatic, looping handwriting was almost perfect, yet fatally imperfect. In its effort to replicate Christine Allred Brown's neater, more functional writing, a slight tremble in the upstroke, a small hesitation before a curve. These small blemishes were the cracks, the tip-offs, that would eventually reveal a conspiracy of financial deceit so bold, so colossal, it promised to incinerate the Brown family heritage to nothing more than ashes. This wasn't some trivial issue of forging a permission slip. This was a calculated, intentional act of identity theft, betrayal that went far beyond game, playing, and entered directly into the hard-nosed realm of felony fraud. The amount at risk, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The price of that betrayal, a whopping 34th of a million. This is the saga of how one sister-wife's thirst for power escalated into a financial ruling that shook the very foundations of plural marriage. Before we get to the mountain of evidence and bombshell courtroom testimony, I need a quick favor. If you enjoy getting the inside scoop and the clearest breakdowns on sister wives, go ahead and click that like button. It tells YouTube that you are interested in more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe to Reality Recap and press the notification bell. You won't miss a single twist in this explosive series. Okay, let's get on with it. To really grasp the weight of what unfolded, we've got to rewind. This legal showdown didn't suddenly materialize. It was a slow, simmering fire sparked by suspicions Christine herself tried to bury for years. As, per sources near Christine's Utah-based New Beginning, the initial warning sign occurred nearly 18 months after she permanently parted ways with Kody. She was getting a mortgage on her new house, a milestone of independence and triumph. Her revenue from internet business was consistent, her accounts in order, and she was ready to put down roots from the drama of Brown family's naughty accounts. Then came the call from the mortgage broker. Metaphorically speaking, his expression was troubled. There was an issue, a major one. Christine's debt-to-income ratio was, as he put it, wildly off balance. He flagged several high-limit credit lines Christine swore she'd never even heard of, and these weren't store cards. We're talking premium-tier credit accounts with 5-figure limits, plus a hefty home equity line of credit, drawn against a property she jointly owned. That piece of property, Coyote Pass. Christine was confused. Naturally, she remembered signing on the dotted line for the purchase of the land, but she was frugal with money, always had been. She hadn't taken out a new line of credit in years. Initially, she attributed it to clerical mistake, perhaps a slip at the credit agency. Mistakes do occur, but the broker insisted. He mailed her the papers. It was then that her reality fell away from under her feet. The accounts were shared. The account holder, Robyn Brown. The secondary account holder, granted complete access and responsibility, Christine Brown, and on the digital platforms hovered a signature, her signature, or at least something remarkably similar, but she could not remember ever signing. Her initial call, according to sources, wasn't to an attorney. It was to Janelle, the steady, number-crunching sister wife, the one who always knew her way around the financial puzzle. Christine described the horror, her voice trembling with a combination of incredulity and terror. On the other line, Janelle remained speechless for an extended period. Then she said something that, per sources, chilled Christine to the bone. "Check those dates on those apps, Christine. Check the dates." Christine brought the files back online. The first card, a high-end travel card, had been issued in late 2018, just as the family hemorrhaged money in the Vegas to Flagstaff relocation. The second, a huge business line of credit, showed up in mid-2019 when Coyote Pass tensions were erupting. But the last discovery was the worst, the HELOC, a line of credit drawn against the combined equity of the family's pieces of land. It all started back in early 2021, hardly a year before Christine would finally pack her bags and leave. The timing was important. They were not coincidental. They fell during the family's bleakest episodes of economic hardship, the same exact times that Kody was complaining on television about overwhelming debt and out of control costs. And yet, in private, massive lines of credit were being opened. Credit against collateral Christine lawfully owned, but credit she knew nothing about. her head spun. She remembered those strained family sessions when Robyn chatted vaguely of creative financing and leveraging assets to weather the tough times. She remembered Kody's bluster, stonewalling Christine's questions before they could get a foothold. Robyn knows what she is doing. She has got it covered, just have faith in the process. Christine had been made to feel small, helpless, like she just wasn't clever enough to understand the complicated financing deals Kody and Robyn claimed were propping up the family. But looking at the records now, she was confronted with a sobering epiphany. Creative financing could have been another term for identity theft. The choice to involve attorneys wasn't easy. This wasn't just money. It was declaring war on the woman who had replaced her, and by extension, on the man she'd spent 25 years loving. But the numbers were staggering. These balances weren't from gas fill-ups or grocery runs. We're talking tens of thousands in luxury retail charges, suspicious cash withdrawals, and payments to vendors Christine had never heard of. Her pristine credit report was in ruins. And worse still, she was contractually obligated to a mountain of debt she had never touched. Her dream of starting over, of starting anew, was being choked by a past she had thought was history. The initial legal strike came stealthily, a civil complaint in a Flagstaff court, charging financial impropriety and calling for a complete accounting of the shared accounts. But as per our insider sources, of which one is a paralegal who is well acquainted with the documents, Robyn and Kody's legal reply stunk of hubris. They portrayed Christine as a bitter former wife, scorned and grasping for cash. Their official line, that Christine was completely knowledgeable and voluntarily participating in all financial transactions. They maintained that in plural marriage, money was free, flowing, and her participation was implicit merely because she was part of the family. They even found the nerve to claim she was simply forgetful, that the pressure of leaving had confused her memory about signing. Their bet was obvious. They hoped this would be dismissed as just another ugly breakup. Another game of he said, she said, but they undercounted Christine. Her lawyers, financed wholly by her own money, brought out their trump card. They filed a motion to compel, requesting the original credit applications, and then the coup d'etat face, they called in Dr. Alistair Finch. Dr. Finch is not your average phone book handwriting expert. He is one of the foremost forensic document examiners in the nation. He has testified in major fraud trials, exposed con artists posing as fake historical manuscript vendors, and made a living tracking down the secrets embedded in scribbles. His participation sent one loud message. This was not merely about recovering funds. This was about revealing a deep breach of trust. This was about fraud. What came next during the discovery process, insiders reveal, was nothing less than obstruction. Robyn and Kody's team foot dragged at every turn, filing for continual extensions, providing heavily redacted documents, anything to delay the inevitable. Then came the depositions. Kody, under oath, was argumentative and volatile. He yelled about Christine's betrayal, blaming her for attempting to destroy the family. When questioned about the credit applications, he denied any personal knowledge of them, saying he left all such business to Robyn. She is the family CEO, he reportedly snapped, a comment that, according to sources, would haunt him later. Robyn's deposition, though, was an entirely different type of show. Her testimony was laced with tears and self-pity. Robyn portrayed herself as the good wife, bravely attempting to keep the finances of the family in check while being constantly pulled down by resentful sister wives. She asserted Christine had attended every significant financial discussion and that the signatures were valid. But when Christine's attorney asked her to specify the time and location of those signings, her memory became suddenly cloudy. "We signed so much paper all those years ago," she is said to have wept. "It is all a blur. But I do know Christine was there. She understood everything she was counting." As always, on her capacity to cry on demand, falling effortlessly into the martyr persona that had served her for more than a decade. But this wasn't a reality television show couch interview with a sympathetic producer. This was testimony under oath. Each word uttered was taped, transcribed, and analyzed. And her evasive responses, combined with dramatics, only strengthened Christine's legal team's resolve. The breakthrough arrived when, under subpoena, banks were compelled to produce their original files. Not scans, but the actual paper applications where feasible, and in the case of the HELOC, high-resolution prints from the digital signing pads. These were the documents Dr. Alistair Finch had been waiting for. For weeks he worked his way through them in his laboratory. Each loop, each cross of a T, each dot above an I. He used magnification, spectral ink analysis, and pressure-sensitive mapping software to follow writing rhythm and tempo. His comparisons weren't even between challenged signatures. They were compared to an enormous repository of Christine Brown's authenticated handwriting, drawn from years of contracts, legal documents, and even personal checks. The outcome was catastrophic. His report, more than 100 pages long, was called a scientific wrecking ball by one legal expert that destroyed Robyn's whole defense. And it did more than establish forgery. It disclosed a psychological portrait of the forger herself. That report took what could have still been a murky civil fight and turned it into a courtroom showstopper that had the whole gallery on tenterhooks. And the trial itself. It was a circus outside, but within the courtroom tension was knife-sharp. On one side sat Christine, unfazed, elegant, determined, surrounded by her legal team, exuding silent strength. She was not there for revenge. She was there for justice. Opposite her, Kody and Robyn, a two-person fortress. Cody's jaw was clenched, eyes sweeping the room with suspicion, quivering with pent-up rage. Robyn held a tissue, whispering rapidly to her attorney, playing again the part of the aggrieved woman. Janelle and Meri were notably not present. Their absence was a loud statement, one of protest or maybe a deliberate withdrawal from the family meltdown that was about to go down. The opening days flew past in procedural battles and opening arguments. Robyn's attorney claimed this was mere plural marriage amnesia, a term he invented to indicate that within a large polygamous family like the Browns, it was only reasonable for one wife to forget commitments she'd made. Christine's attorney, Elena Torres, a crisp, no-nonsense figure, cut through that smoke with these words. "These are not the intricacies of plural marriage, Your Honor. These are the ease of theft. This case is about greed, lying, and felony, level fraud." And then, the turn that changed everything. Dr. Alistair Finch testified, a man in his late 60s, mild, bookish, with a solid professorial composure. The kind of presence that commanded respect even before he opened his mouth. The courtroom canted forward as Torres started. She went through his credentials line by line, constructing a towering list of accomplishments. Then she brought the questioning to its core. A huge screen came to life, visible to the judge, jury, and gallery. "Dr. Finch," Torres asked, her voice ringing in the hushed chamber, "can you tell the court what we're looking at here?" On screen, an authenticated Christine Brown signature, taken from 2017 Las Vegas home sale records. It was neat, regular. The C in Christine is open, intentional. A neat, straightforward loop. The crossed with a confident, assertive stroke. It was the writing of a busy, no-nonsense, efficient person. "This," said Dr. Finch to the court, his voice projected through the microphone, "is what we refer to as the exemplar, the baseline, the familiar standard against which we measure all questioned signatures. For Mrs. Brown, we have more than 200 authenticated examples extending beyond a decade. Her handwriting, as might be expected to be the case with all handwriting, is wonderfully stable in its fundamental characteristics." Then Torres clicked. The screen changed. Next to the exemplar was another signature, this one taken from the 2018 credit card app to the naked eye. It was a spitting image, essentially the same, but Dr. Finch raised his laser pointer. Class was about to start. "Now, pay attention here," he instructed, tracing the capital C. "In the genuine example, the pen starts at the top and runs down in a firm, smooth stroke. In the disputed signature, he clicked the red dot at the curve. We observe what is called hesitation artifacting. When magnified, the ink pools a little at the peak. That indicates the writer hesitated, even for half a second, to consider the shape that is drawing. That is not writing." A hushed murmur spread through the courtroom. Kody fidgeted. Robyn's eyes locked on the glowing screen. Dr. Finch continued, his pointer gliding across the projected image. "Observe the baseline," he directed. A true signature flows with rhythm, with natural movement. Christine Brown's real signature sits comfortably on the line each time. But notice here in the questioned one, wavering, see an upward creep followed by a downward correction. It is overcompensation. The forger is so concerned about reproducing letter form they lose the natural rhythm of the original writer. He moved to another slide, too. It's one beside the other. Notice one of the most significant differences, he told them. Mrs. Brown's crossbars are snappy, almost flung off. The careless flourish one gives to a name signed thousands of times the forgery. He drew the impeccable line, dead center, carefully straight. Too perfect. It is what one imagines a signature looks like, not what it does look like in practice. He went on and on, almost 2 hours, stroke by stroke, line by line. He demonstrated how pen pressure in the forgeries was inconsistent unnaturally, heavy on the downstrokes, light on the upstrokes, evidence of slow intentional drawing as opposed to rapid subconscious movement. He even analyzed the ink itself, noting that one of the applications had used a brand of pen Robyn had proclaimed her love for on social media. A brand Christine had never been photographed holding. Neither piece of information taken in isolation was anything, but layered together they were crushing. 1,000 little cuts that together constructed an unbreakable image of lies. The culmination was the home equity line of credit, the HELOC on Coyote Pass. That one wasn't written down. It was recorded electronically. Dr. Finch, Torres inquired, can an electronic signature actually be probed with as much accuracy as ink on paper? In a sense, he said matter of factly, with even more accuracy. He demonstrated the pad doesn't only capture shape, it stores metadata, the stylus speed, the lift points, but most critically, pressure data recorded hundreds of times a second. A 3D model glowed on the screen, Christine's real signature first, a rolling wave, smooth, even pressure. Sure flow, the forged one came second, a jagged range of mountains, serrated peaks and valleys. What you're seeing here, Dr. Finch told the court, is the digital ghost of the forger. Every spike corresponds to hesitation, to concentrate, especially on complex curves. The true writer flows effortlessly through her name. The forger stabs, halts, and guides. Then came the number that silenced the room. The data shows this questioned signature took 4.7 seconds to complete. Mrs. Brown's average across all known samples, he looked at the jury, 1.8 seconds. The signature had been slow, painstakingly slow, a precision no natural signer would ever use. And then the knockout punch. Miss Torres looked at Dr. Finch and inquired if he had received any authentic handwriting samples from the defendant. Robyn Brown, he assured, yes, taken from legal documents Robyn herself had signed. A copy of her signature took up the whole screen. It was flamboyant, dotted with wide-open loops, and topped with a sweeping, cinematic underline. Despite all their work, forgers seldom manage to completely erase their own habits. Dr. Finch likened it to attempting to hide one's native accent when speaking another language. However diligently you try, there are always traces that slip through. He then placed the forged Christine's signature atop Robyn's. The comparisons jumped out. The loop in Robyn's name was almost an exact duplicate of the loop created in the forged name. The long, curling exit stroke, unmistakably hers, bled into the forged E. It was handwriting DNA, her own stylistic fingerprint giving away her effort to disguise. With a scientific degree of certainty, announced Dr. Finch, eyes fixed on the judge, these questioned signatures were not the work of Christine Brown. The odds are overwhelming that they were signed by the very same hand that penned Robyn Brown's established signatures. The courtroom fell silent. Robyn emitted a choking sob. Kody sat like a rock, face pale, eyes blazing with anger. He had walked in convinced this was a mean ex-wife's trick. Now he sat before the stunning reality. His preferred wife, the woman for whom he had dissolved his family, was revealed in a deception so colossal, it defied credulity. Testimony was the spark, and the whole defense now seethed in gasoline. The judge's face was inscrutable, but a glint in his eye gave it away. The ground had been moved. This was no longer a family fight. It was a crime. The stage had been set. The evidence had been laid bare. The verdict, a financial loss worth hundreds of thousands, was now certain. The only remaining questions were how steep the damages would be and how deep the cuts of the fallout would run. The cross-examination of Dr. Alistair Finch was nothing less than a slaughter of the defense. Robyn's attorney, Mr. Davies, was clearly outmatched. He tried to dispute that handwriting analysis was more an art than a science, and tried to portray Dr. Finch as a highly paid hired gun in Christine's camp. The tactic fell flat. Finch, serene and systematic, deconstructed every obstacle as if instructing a wayward pupil. He quoted peer-reviewed literature, statistical likelihoods of handwriting characteristics, the physics of ink deposition, even the biomechanics of motor memory in the human hand. His accuracy was lethal. Davies was sputtering at the end, his face flushed with humiliation. The jury wasn't only convinced, they glared at Davies with contemptuous openness, some with pity. The defense was imploding in the moment. Their final desperate play was to put Robyn herself on the stand. It was a desperate gamble. The plan relied on her tears, her expertly crafted vulnerability, her years of manipulating crowds in front of and behind the lens. Her own legal counsel was divided. Davies objected to it, aware that she would be torn apart during cross. But Kody, always confident, believed in the strength of their work, in being able to persuade a jury with truth, he insisted. On it. Ultimately cornered and out of alternatives, Robyn acquiesced. It was to become the worst decision of her life. As Robyn took the stand, she was the picture of a broken woman. Her eyes were puffy, bloodshot from crying, her voice little more than a squeak. She vowed her oath to God and sat down in the witness chair as if it were a bed of thorns. Her attorney, Mr. Davies, started gently asking her easy questions designed to evoke sympathy. He asked her to describe the difficulties of plural marriage, the relentless financial pressure, the isolation of being the fourth wife, perpetually the outsider. Robyn talked of her love of the family, of her sacrifices, of how she'd placed her own desires upon the altar for the greater good. She wept. She explained to the jury how deeply Christine's allegations had hurt her, how it was all a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of her good faith intentions. I only ever wanted to help, she wept, grasping a shaking tissue. We were like family, I believed. I believed we trusted one another. It was an act Kody Brown had been duped by countless times before, but Elena Torres, Christine's lawyer, was not Kody. When Torres stood for cross-examination, she was not charged with hostility. She came forward with the exactness of a surgeon. Mrs. Brown, Torres opened, her voice level, firm, unwavering. You said in your testimony that your sole purpose was to assist the family financially. Is that so? Yes, Robyn breathed. With all my heart. And Kody Brown in his deposition called you the CEO of the family. Would you say that you were an expert in these things? Robyn smiled weakly, sadly. I wouldn't say it like that. I did the best I could. Kody trusted me. He sure did, Torres said, hanging the words on the air, a sword. She pulled a file from the evidence table. This is the 14th of November 2018. Application for the Capital One Venture X card. Credit limit, $30,000. Do you remember it? Robyn's brow furrowed. Those were crazy times. The move, the bills. It was a lot. I am sure it was, Torres replied flatly. That application was submitted on a computer. The IP address leads straight back to the rental house you and Kody shared at the time. Were you home on that date, Mrs. Brown? Robyn's gaze darted to her attorney, who sat useless. I think so. I was home a lot, and Christine Brown. Torres pushed. Where was she on the 14th of November 2018? I don't know. I don't keep track of her schedule. Her calendar and travel expenses, already entered into evidence, put her in Salt Lake City for a business conference. She wasn't in Flagstaff. She wasn't in your residence. So tell us, Mrs. Brown. How did Christine Brown's signature end up on this application, made from your computer on a day she was in another state? The room fell completely silent. Robyn's face lost color, perhaps. Perhaps she pre-signed it when she left, she stuttered. Sometimes we pre-signed blank forms for convenience's sake. Torres's brow rose. Blank credit applications? You are implying Christine would pre-sign a legal document providing access to a $30,000 line of credit in her own name. Does that strike you as the move of a financially prudent individual, Mrs. Brown? Robyn hesitated. In my family, we had a different kind of trust. A trust, Torres pressed on, her voice finally sharpening, that you appear to have violated. She approached the next display. Let's talk about the HELOC, the home equity line on Coyote Pass. $150,000 completed the 3rd of March 2021. Documents indicate the digital signature was recorded within a Flagstaff branch. The bank manager stated that 2 people, saying they were Kody and Christine Brown, were present. Kody's presence is not in dispute, but Christine has given under oath affidavits, along with time-stamped cell data showing where she was at her daughter Isabel's school function at that very moment. Tors locked eyes with Robyn. So again, who was the woman sitting next to Kody Brown, signing Christine Brown's signature at that bank? The tears returned for Robyn, but they no longer resembled sorrow, they resembled guilt. I don't know, she whispered. I wasn't there. Kody handled that, Robyn wailed, wildly attempting to deflect blame, throwing her husband under the bus. As how interesting, Torres said, pacing intently, because Kody Brown testified in his deposition under oath that you, Robyn Brown, were responsible for all the paperwork on the HELOC. His own words were, I just appear where Robyn instructs me and sign where she instructs me. She is the brains of the operation. So tell us, Mrs. Brown, are you the brains of the operation, or do you have no idea what is going on? You can't be both. Robyn started to break down. Her sobs became frantic, verging on hysteria. You are twisting this. You are turning me into a monster. I loved that family. I gave them everything. Tors let the silence hang, letting Robyn's wails ring out over the subdued courtroom. Then, with icy detachment, she delivered the fatal blow. She came up to the stand and set down a document squarely in front of Robyn. It was a purchase order from a high-end jewelry shop, dated just a few days after the HELOC funds had been dispersed. The item, a one-of-a-kind necklace worth more than $15,000. The payment method, the business line of credit, opened both in Robyn and Christine's names. Mrs. Brown, Torres asked firmly, is your signature on the purchase order? Robyn stood, paralyzed. The cursive, overwrought scribble was hers beyond doubt, the same that Dr. Finch had analyzed for the court. She had nowhere to hide. Yes, she whispered at last, her voice cracking, a $15,000 necklace. Torres went on, her voice slicing like steel. Funded by a line of credit fraudulently applied for in Christine Brown's name. A line of credit you procured by forging her name. Was this fancy piece of jewelry also for the benefit of the family, Mrs. Brown? Or was it all about you? Robyn was at a loss. She sat broken, naked, her crying no longer effective. Only pure shame streaming down her face. Nothing more needed to be said. The play was over. The truth had taken its bow. Closing argument seemed like an afterthought. Elena Torres addressed the jury and, without drama, presented the facts, the dates, the IP addresses, the metadata on digital signatures, the irrefutable testimony of Dr. Finch. She didn't scream, she didn't have to. Her voice was enough to bear the weight of the truth. She finished with a heart-wrenching portrait, not merely of fraud, but of betrayal. For years, Torres said, pointing at Christine, Robyn Brown demeaned my client, made her feel small and powerless and paranoid. She used the sacred trust of a family unit to design a long-term fraud centered in greed and control. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft. We demand restitution, but something more than that. We demand a ruling that makes it unmistakable. You cannot steal a person's name, their credit, their sense of security, and get away with it. Davies, Robyn's attorney, tried a rebuttal. He sought to redefine it as a family tragedy, one of miscommunication spawned by the nature of plural marriage. He begged sympathy, even intimated that if Robyn had signed, it was from love, an attempt to salvage the family from ruin. It was thin, pitiful, patching the hole in the Titanic with tape. The jury had been out less than 3 hours. When they came back, their faces were somber, their eyes not on Robyn or Kody, but on the judge. The foreman gave the slip to the bailiff, who delivered it to the bench. The judge's face didn't change as his voice boomed throughout the quiet courtroom on the issue of Brown versus Brown. This court rules in the plaintiff, Christine Brown. A gentle gasp ran through the gallery. Christine closed her eyes, a solitary tear tracing down her cheek relief. Vindication, but there was more. The judge didn't glance up from the bench. He stared down with an unblinking gaze at Kody and Robyn. This court has heard evidence of the peculiarities of a plural family. Let me make myself crystal clear. Plural marriage is not a license to be fraudulent. Financial trust is not some nebulous abstraction. It is a legal and moral commitment. What occurred here was no misunderstanding. It was a brazen and staggering breach of trust. The defendant, Robyn Brown, carried on a deliberate course of dishonesty, borrowing from the plaintiff's identity, reputation, and credit for her own personal piggy bank while attempting to cover her trail. The judge suspended, his words left hanging in the air like a hammer held above the anvil. Thus, this court grants the plaintiff, Christine Brown, the amount of $250,000 in compensatory damages to reimburse the principal debt incurred and to compensate for the immense harm caused to her credit rating. Kody's jaw dropped. Robyn seemed as if the ground had been swept from under her feet, but the judge wasn't done. His tone hardened. Furthermore, due to the egregious, intentional, and fraudulent nature of the defendant's conduct, punitive damages are not only justified, but absolutely required. Punitive damages serve the purpose of punishing wrongdoing and deterring others from such schemes. The degree of premeditation and manipulation in this instance is unprecedented. For these reasons, this court awards the plaintiff a further $500,000 in punitive damages, $750,000. The amount erupted in the room like a bomb. It was not money. It was an economic death sentence. The judge administered the coup de grace. This court directs the defendant to cooperate with all of those financial institutions involved to have the plaintiff's name removed from all lines of credit, fraudulently procured, and to take sole responsibility for all balances outstanding. This court will maintain jurisdiction to ensure compliance with these orders. This case is at an end. The gavel came down with the force of a gunshot. It was done. Christine's team welcomed in subdued triumph. Kody remained still, white-faced with rage, incredulity inscribed upon his features. Robyn collapsed, weeping hysterically. Not the manufactured dainty tears of testimony, but the stark, ripping sobs of a woman seeing her whole life burn to nothing. The backlash started the moment they ventured out. Cameras and reporters mobbed them. Red-faced and furious, Kody pushed a cameraman aside and snarled, "No comment, this is a family issue," before roughly pulling a sobbing Robyn towards their parked car. The photo of their panicked dash was the antithesis of Christine's calm, smiling departure. Just minutes after, a moment caught and aired on all networks, all celebrity sites within hours, the narrative was sealed. Robyn, the scammer; Kody, her enabler; Christine, the survivor who beat them both. That $750,000 verdict isn't a number. It is a rope dragging them down. From our sources, the financial crisis within the Shiraz Chateau is apocalyptic. The mortgage on that home worth $1 million is devastating. Their savings, zilch. Their income virtually completely dependent on the show, a revenue stream now teetering on a thread. I mean, how do you keep making a reality show about a happy plural family when there is a wife who has been legally stigmatized as a con artist who swindled another? The consensus among production sources is this: the house must come down. Robyn's self-proclaimed castle, her trophy inside the family, will probably be sold off to cover the judgment. But even then, after taxes and realtor commissions, it probably won't all go towards the judgment. Which brings up the jewel of the crown, Coyote Pass. Christine's parcel is hers, free and untouchable. But Kody, Robyn, Janelle, and Meri's portions are tied in a tangled mess of ownership. Now with this judgment hanging over Robyn, and by extension, Kody, their share is under a massive lien. They can't sell it. They can't borrow against it. They can't develop it. It's frozen, locked down by the very fraud they tried to hide. The dream of the grand family home on Coyote Pass isn't just over, it's been buried under court orders and legal chains, and as for the other wives, our sources reveal fascinating dynamics. Janelle, we're told, is quietly overjoyed. She always suspected Robyn had been reckless, playing games with the so-called family pot that Janelle herself was never allowed to fully examine. For her, this isn't only Christine's vindication. For Janelle, it is not just Christine's triumph. It is vindication for all the times she questioned a purchase, being quieted with "just trust Robyn." Each time her skepticism was dismissed has now been righted. According to insiders, this has solidified Christine and Janelle's relationship. They're no longer just sister wives. They're partners. Survivors who rode out the same economic and emotional storm. Meri's role, as always, is more complicated. But insiders believe this verdict may have been a brutal wake-up call for her. For years, she poured her money into the family, especially into supporting Robyn and her children. It was Meri, after all, who helped fund the down payment for the Shiraz chateau. Now she must be asking herself, where did that money truly go? Was it being utilized for family stability? Or was it supporting a lifestyle of lies and fake credit? This lawsuit may be the prod Meri needs to hire her own forensic accountant and cut her finances loose from Kody and Robyn. If she does, she might find Christine wasn't alone. But the most tragic part is with the children. For them, this has nothing to do with lawsuits, headlines, or ratings. This is about their mothers. Robyn's children, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna, were taught to view their mom as the eternal victim, the misunderstood saint unfairly beset by jealous sister wives. Now, how do they get that image to jibe with the harsh truth of a court deeming her a fraud? And what about the older Brown children, Logan Aspin, Leon, Mickelty, Hunter, Peden, Garrison, Gabriel, Gwen, Isabel, Savannah, and Truly? They watched for years as their mothers gave up, stretched every last dollar, and sacrificed their own needs for the good of the family. Now they have legal affirmation that those sacrifices weren't ignored. They were taken, their family's trust pilfered to fund the preferred wife's lifestyle. The divide between Robyn's kids and the OG Brown children was already wide. Now it is a chasm. One that cannot be crossed. No more get-togethers. No more facade. There is only before the verdict. And afterward, this suit has torn down the carefully built facade of the Brown family. Robyn is no longer the tearful, sensitive soul. She has been exposed as the mastermind of a decades-long scam, a financial predator who disguised her greed in religion and family. Kody is no longer the patriarch in charge. He stands exposed as either a willing accomplice or a fool, so blinded by love he didn't notice the snake in his bed. And Christine, the wife so relentlessly mocked and belittled, has become the heroine of her own tale. She battled not with tears or manipulation, but with unflinching truth and undeniable proof. She has recovered her name, earned her future, and pulled the veil away from the Brown family mythology for the world to behold. The sister wives drama, as it was known, is over. What comes next isn't marked by love, togetherness, or mutual belief, but by lawsuits, liens, and the bitter legacy of a signature that never belonged to her.